Can we start recording?
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Catamount Community Forest Committee on February 9th at 5:33. And is there any public comment? I don't see any members of the public.
No.
We're good on that. And we have the approval of the minutes for January 12th, 2023. Give folks a little time to look through. I like how you numbered them.
Well, yeah, I thought rather than people saying like the third line of the fourth paragraph on the second page, maybe it might just be easier to number them.
Yeah, no, these were very thorough minutes. This is great. Thank you.
Laura's ready to.
So I guess the only thing I had was in 4.8, and I just want to clarify. It says that Terry noted that the logger will be obligated to bring the trails back to their standards, and I guess their standards. I guess just the standards of the trail. I don't know how to. It was just the pre-logging conditions, I guess, is what I was trying to say. But other than that, it looks good. So any comments on these? Had everybody had enough time to read them? Any comments?
I had read them earlier and didn't see any problems.
Great. Okay, so is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Danielle seconded? Yeah, Danielle second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the minutes of January 12th, 2023 have been approved as written, I guess?
Yeah, as tweaked.
Tweaked, yeah. One more. Great. Okay, so I guess we can move on to the next topic would be the 2023 Forest Management Project Discussion and Recommendation. So I'll hand that over to Simon.
Yeah, so we discussed this in quite some length a month ago. Ethan's not able to be here tonight, but he did send through some comments I can relate to you. Just to recap, that last time I think we spent some time just here's John.
Yep, John's coming in.
Right. So last time we spent some time talking about the project, what it was and why we were doing it and the benefits it could have. I think Ethan explained his process he'd been through to take on board the contractor based on their reputation, the type of equipment that they could bring, specifying, I think they calls it the cut to length system and the use of the forwarders. I think we talked about the family centre's concerns about the conditions of the trails afterwards, how they'd be repaired, potential cost. I think we talked about a solution, making the contractor responsible for sort of grading and reshaping the trails. This was to motivate them to minimize any damage they might cause and be careful. And then we were sort of looking at any sort of remedial outstanding work. We can develop a scope based on surveys with the Outdoor Family Centre and hopefully contract with them. I think the Family Centre just wanted to identify that this is a lot of their most popular trails that are being affected. They will be closed for 4 to 6 weeks. We spent some time talking about mitigation, things like not working if the ground's too wet and even monitoring the situation. And then I think we also talked about creating some talking points for the committee so that if we meet people when we are around town. We can explain to them the project, the benefits it provides, any sort of remedial work, and why it was approved. After that, I think John mentioned at the meeting that he was preparing a budget for what the trail repairs could cost. Based on his experience, he has a lot of experience in trail building. I think there's probably still a certain amount of assumptions that has to be made. So that gave us a good idea about what it would take to repair sort of every trail. If every trail was damaged, what would it take to repair those depending on the extent of damage? It gave me in particular a good idea about what we can expect, or we could expect to see if we don't monitor things properly. Sort of rutting on the trails, damage to drainage features, and just sort of general impacts, and also like how a trail builder would go about repairing them, the sort of equipment they need, and the labour. So I found that a really helpful exercise. It definitely gave me, I guess, a kick in the backside to make sure I understood the importance of managing this project effectively. We've got to pay attention. I've got to pay attention to the choice of contractor and contract itself. We need to make sure we are in control of these activities, monitoring things, and the contract we develop holds the the logger accountable. So we do have that $10,000 budget in our capital budget for sort of post logger repairs, so to speak. So as I mentioned earlier, the logger is going to be expected to reshape and regrade. They've been selected on the basis that they have some equipment to do that. And then we're going to look at that pre and post survey with the Outdoor Family Centre and just see where we can, if we need to finesse the trails. I did take the opportunity to brief the town manager on where we've got to, where things stand with the project and the contract we're thinking about, relayed what the committee discussed and some of the Outdoor Family Centre's concerns. So he's sort of switched on to the idea that we're going to be looking at this in some detail with the select board. And we also talked about what would happen if the budget did exceed $10,000, because I know that's a concern of the family centre. And we felt it would be progressing that through either an insurance claim or if there was some egregious damage suing the contractor. So I think that really all points back to the importance of having sufficient time and staff time to scrutinise this contract and make sure we get a proper legal review to protect the town. I think this is a project that everyone, I think, is on board with and thinks will be very beneficial. It's vital towards the health of the forest and understanding how our forest is going to sort of hopefully adapt to changing climates. But like any big project, you spend a lot of time thinking about what could go wrong. And so we need to make sure we do action that. So to move this on, I just wanted to go back a step to sort of what we're asking the committee to do. So the Forest Management Plan has essentially approved this project as part of that. So what we're asking is that the select board have the opportunity to vet the contractor, and then we'll enter into a contract with them, the town manager will. So this is like an opportunity for the committee to sort of take on board what Ethan said about this contractor, and then also think about things we might want to recommend staff consider when drafting the contract. So you may recall we went through a sort of similar exercise last year when we were talking about the license for the Outdoor Family Centre. We got feedback from the committee there, and then we took that forward. in staff time. So I've spent a bit of time. I know that I think some of you met the contractor when they were out with Ethan looking at the trails and walking the site. So I know some of you have met him. I spent a bit of time researching the contractor. I know we've got Ethan's recommendation. I want to do my own due diligence, and they do look good. To that end, I've prepared a memo with a draft recommendation for the committee to look through. And we can sort of work through that. That might stimulate some conversation. But before I do any more talking, I just want to check whether anyone has anything to say at this stage.
Simon, I had a question just following your train of thought.
Yeah.
The idea that like the if the logger, I'm not calling them the right name, if the logger creates more damage than $10,000 can fix, and they leave it in the state that it costs more than $10,000 to fix, did you say something like we make them liable, or like have teeth in the contract to make them liable? And I
think so. What we do is, the idea is that the contract is structured in such a way that it prevents that ever happening. So we would have things like penalties. We would monitor. Ethan would be up there 2 or 3 days a week. I dare say John will be doing his own ad hoc monitoring. So if we do spot problems, we'd spot them early before widespread damage occurs, and we'd address that, with the contractor. We'd make them change their procedures, how they're doing things. If we feel that maybe, it would depend on what exactly the problem was, but if we feel there's a particular member of staff who's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, we could look at that. And as with any contract, you do always have the option to terminate it if you feel some things aren't being performed. So that's where we, prevention is better than fixing mistakes after they've been, and that's how it feeds in with Ethan's choice of contractor. But we would make sure that we hold them liable for any damage that they do, and we would have our insurance and their insurance to claim on.
Okay. My thought is just like examining the underlying assumptions and premise that with this type of work being done and the type of cleanup and fixing that this type of contractor is capable of doing, we expect them to get within $10,000 of being back to original state.
Yes.
And I'm just examining that underlying premise, and like I Googled Harley rake, I had no idea what it was. But it's a pretty wide machine that probably helps with the gravel roads. But as far as the single track, like I guess I have no idea. Like, what are they going to do to a single track to buff it out to be a nice, smooth dirt single track? Like, I'm just questioning the underlying premise that they have the ability to get it to within 10,000 of the current state on the single trails.
If you actually go onto their website, they actually have a section there where the Longview Forestry they do build trails. So they have a crew that actually builds trails. And they show them they're doing like a single track
no way.
trail as opposed to
look at it then.
larger. Yeah, take a look at the website. It's pretty impressive.
Okay, no, that's fine. But did my thinking kind of make sense? Like that is sort of the underlying premise.
Yeah. So I think like another thing that's important to remember is this is like not the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
So like this is like we're halfway through here, and once we get a contractor on board, we're going to continue to develop like the mitigation and monitoring strategy as we go on. So right down to like I assume the first day where Ethan is briefing them, the actual guys who are doing the work. This is what's important. You guys need to be aware of this.
Okay, thanks.
Any more comments? So I do encourage folks to take a look at, since Longview is really the contractor that is most likely to get the contract done. Yeah, their website has a lot of information. They've been in business for 24 years. Some of the employees are very long-term employees, and they just seem, they really have some good photos on there that shows, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a look through, you know, in the end, you sort of can't beat Ethan's recommendation, but you know, there's some interesting stories about them. Well, one interesting story, there's not much in the way of forestry contract stories, but they do, you know, they do list, you know, the woodland services they provide. It seems like they're more than just a logger, so they talk about, you know, invasive plant management, timber stand improvement.
There's the trails.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
Yeah, trail
So
design, construction and maintenance, and the sorts of things they do, orchards and field clearing. And then there's, you know, to back up what Ethan was saying about the cut to length, which sounds like the one we want to go with. It sounds like this is their preferred way of harvesting timber. So it's something that they're, you know, big on doing. So they seem to have a pretty good rep. Also like the fact that they were employee owned, not that that's really that material, but
So now the next steps would be that, so we need to tonight decide whether we'll recommend this contractor and send that to the select board, send this memo.
yeah, so I'll come to your point in a moment, John. So I've put together something that it would actually help if I shared my screen. So I put together a memo that I hope reflects what we discussed at the last meeting. So what this does, it sets out, it's for the select board, and it sets out the background, you know, the various plans we have. You know, there has been forest management of the property previously, what we're asking the select board to do, some stuff about the project and how important it is. We've got the recreational use here, so let me just cut that down so that Terry can see.
Yeah, it's I have my own copy, but it is small.
So, you know, I don't want this memo to be entirely about recreational use because project's quite large. So, you know, talking about trying to reiterate what the Catamount Outdoor Family Centre have expressed to me on a number of occasions, you know, the importance of the trails to them. And I guess you could say without the trails, they're just an organisation renting space and renting equipment in a place no one wants to go. Talking about the various mitigation measures that we've discussed. So things like, you know, starting in September after the camps and bird breeding season are both done, making sure that Ethan is there, supervise and monitor. You know, not to undertake any work if the ground is too wet. Making sure we stay off recreational trails wherever possible. And the fact that we've selected them based on their record working in sensitive areas. Terry mentioned they've worked in marsh fillings. I know they're working, Ethan's aware of their work they're about to start or somewhere out in sort of eastern Vermont that has trails, making sure they understand that they're responsible for repairing the trails. Some stuff about there that the select board understands that we're obligated to repair them if the contractor doesn't perform. And then talking about the precondition survey and sort of planting the seeds of if we do need to do any work, the Outdoor Family Centre are well placed to do that. And I think this is the point I wanted to discuss, like, that I'm sorry, that I meant to you, Hans, is this is like halfway through the process. We're going to be working up a detailed project plan with them. We're going to continue to liaise with Family Centre over implementation. I know that Terry, Hans, John and I went out and met with Ethan to look at, and so apologies again for Reid for
Don't worry,
detailing your attendance.
don't worry about it.
An open meeting.
I found plenty of other things to do. So,
Yeah, so we went out, and I think what that taught me was that you know, if once we get out there, we can agree a lot of stuff. I think, you know, going out there and having a walk about how this project's going to be done will be great for conveying information to the Family Centre, but also I think that cuts both ways. I think Ethan probably benefit from your expertise as well in project planning. And then this is really some of the aspects about what I think we want to make sure that the town staff are aware of. So making sure we secure that sort of trail-friendly equipment, so to speak. Make sure that we sort of get a robust monitoring regime overseen by Ethan. We're going to put a lot of weight on him, but that's not to say that I'm not going to be involved, because I'm motivated to make sure this project is a success. Make sure they follow Ethan's instructions. This aspect about making sure that we can enforce adherence to the contract, and then sort of the remedial works there. There's some information for the select board about the outreach we've done and we continue to do, and then some information about the contractor. So Longview Foresters, it's the information that Ethan relayed to us about using cut and length system, taking chains off the tires, sort of clearing the trails and bringing them back up to their pre-existing situation. And then lastly, we sort of have the recommendation. So that's like quite a lot of information. So I just want to check whether anyone wants to talk about that, whether anyone thinks there's something I might have missed in terms of the sort of committee recommendation to the select board. So I mean, I guess the first question is, I think, you know, I've done a lot of like looking into it. We've got Ethan's recommendation. I'm pretty happy with Longview Forest as being the company that we recommend to the select board. Don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
I think this is pretty, it covers a lot of different topics, a lot of different possibilities. So I think this will be good for the select board to be able to look through this and get a good sense of what's involved. So,
Okay.
Anybody else have comments?
This is Reid. So I've read through the document, and it appears to, you know, put in the information that we discussed at length last month. I have no background in logging, and can only, you know, review what's on their website and take what Ethan has recommended. But it seems that this company has a more careful approach to forest management and logging than, say, a traditional logger with a skidder. So for that, what that's worth, I think I can't object to them being the recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable. I mean, I think, you know, we have good working relationship with Ethan, and to some extent trust that he looked for anybody local that does this kind of thing. Certainly this company seems to meet the criteria we're after. So it seems reasonable to take the next step. My only comment is just for clarity of the recommendation. I don't know, Simon, like, I guess this is enough for the select board to know what to do. We recommend that they appoint Longview Forest Contracting. Like, I don't know, town processes. Like, is there?
So that's a good point. They are only So it is the town that is contracting with them. So I think that's fine. I'll be honest with you, Eric Wells, the town manager, always writes the recommendation in his manager's report.
Okay.
So he will do what he thinks is appropriate. So they are vetting them, and sort of, I think the idea is that they don't object rather than anything else.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it'll be like more crisp as to like what exactly is happening, like, you know, that they begin XYZ process with a contract written for evaluation by X date or whatever.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And Ethan is working right now with them to put in the things that he'd like to see in the contract.
Yeah.
So there's still, that's a work in progress. He's still working on that.
So Ethan has already talked with Longview.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's met with them several times, and I think they've been out to look at the property. Yeah.
Yeah, I went out, I was with Ethan and Logan, and yeah, so we had a good walk through the trails, and he seemed to be pretty confident that it was, yeah, he was very excited to see flat. They're not used to working on flat land, so that's
Yeah.
gonna be, he saw that as a big plus.
I assume no conflict of interest. Like I should think that like foresters and loggers in Vermont are few and far between, so they probably knew each other ahead of time, but like Ethan doesn't own any part
Well,
of this
they're
company, does he?
Actually, I'm sure he's worked with them or crossed their paths, but
Yeah.
they're from Westminster West, which is near Putney, but they have a crew that's up here in the north.
Oh,
So they have a crew that actually just works here in the northern part of the state.
but just
So,
no conflict of interest, like for Ethan,
No.
right? Like he doesn't own or nothing. Like
No,
that.
no, he's not.
It's one of those shares. I think
No
they're
shares.
employee owned, so unless he's got
Okay.
like,
Oh, yeah, that's you said that.
yeah.
And he's a state employee, so.
He is,
so,
yeah. So I'm sure somebody's watching over Ethan. So,
Got it.
great, okay, any more comments? Okay, I guess so next step would be to send this memo to the,
Yeah, so I think, this is a recommendation, so I would like the committee to vote on it, please.
okay, so would someone like to make a motion to approve, I guess, going into
So-
contract with Longview?
So I'll make a motion to recommend sending the memo as written to the select board to go forward with this contract with Longview for the forest management. So that's
Thank you. That sounds thorough, yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you, Reed.
And is there a second?
Yep, I second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, great, motion passes.
So John sent me a message in the chat just about a couple of issues. I don't know if you just want to say your message, John, or if you have me to relay it, but essentially it's I think they met with Jim and Lucy, who shared their thoughts about closing the whole area of the project for 6 weeks in the summer and fall, and being non-viable for COFC recreationally, and non-viable for the community. So I think what he's driving at there is that, or rather what Jim and Lucy were driving at, is that it would be good if the area could somehow stay open during the forest management project. So that might be tricky, but maybe it's something we can look at if there's like, if this has been done in a phased manner, maybe there would be some trails we could open up early,
Mhm.
if we think it can be safely done. I don't know what people think about that.
Well, I guess I have a question. I mean, I understand we're closing the area they're working on, but I assume the rest of Catamount is open? For
Yeah.
instance, the south side, I mean, we're not closing down the entire facility. Is that correct?
Could you pull up that
Yeah, I'll
map?
bring up. the
Yeah,
map.
he's gonna pull up the map of the,
Yeah, and I
Ethan
know,
provided a map
right, right.
of where the forestry project's going to happen.
Yeah, I think the sentiment was it's like the popular trails and a very high concentration of trails in that area.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And
so-
yeah, that's certainly appreciated because I mean, we've discussed that many times that obviously this 25 acres encompasses, it looks like 2/3 or 3/4 of the trails in the whole facility. I guess I'm not sure where Jim and Lucy are coming from, but it seems that once a company is moving through there, I mean, we've got the whole issue of people and equipment and chainsaws and everything. And then you also have if trails are disrupted and are going to be rightfully rectified, but they may not be during the course of the project. So I don't know how you'd have part of it open for use while the project's underway.
Yeah, and
So
I guess the Senate, the idea would be not that we have to figure it out here, Reed. I appreciate you trying to bend your mind around what this looks like logistically. But maybe the point is just to say, look, in the past, somehow Lucy and Jim figured out during forestry activities how to have some open hours, or like when they're done for the day, they clean up their stuff and they're, so I don't know if they're 9 to 5 and then after 5 they're open for people. So I don't know those details and we don't need to figure those details out. I think the sentiment is just have the discussion with the crew and see what they can manage. With the I remember just by way of experience, the power line project with Velco, like they would like go in fits and spurts, and the arrangement was with Kim, they would get back to her and say like, okay, well, these days we're going to be there doing stuff. It's going to be closed. And they would come in and Velco was responsible for closing it. And then when they were done and kind of like not, I mean, it came in fits and spurts, there was like weeks at a time that it was open and then, it's not going to be the same, but I think it's just the point to have the discussion with a forester. How did Jim manage to get it open at the end of the day? Or during the weekend, like even if they're just open on the weekends, for the community. I think that, the sentiment's more for the community's use of the property.
So one thought I had was, could you bring that map back up again? So I talked to Ethan a little bit about this when we walked the trails with Logan from Longview Forestry. He explained how they would do the logging and it would be like a herringbone. So there'd be one trail that would go out and there would be like, little arms that would go just like herringbone. And so I just chatted with Ethan for, one day when we were out there, maybe last time. If there was a possibility, if you look at that map, you can see it's like two distinct areas because there's a ravine that goes through there.
Right.
And if the company, Longview could go out and work on one area and maybe start from the back and then work their way back towards the landing, that they would be able to possibly, I'd no guarantees, but they might be able to open trails as they're moving, if they went from the back and came forward, the trails that were in the back would be able to be partially opened, or, if there was a way to do that. First on the right-hand side and then maybe on the left-hand side. And then maybe weekends, weekends they might be able to reopen, but I think that's,
So I think this is like one that I got the impression from Ethan that this might be one we figure out a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Because I got the impression that there might be, if everything goes perfectly, then they don't need to work at the weekends. But if they're like if they get behind, then they might just work 7 days straight.
Like the weather.
Yeah.
The weather might.
So it might be something we can look at. I think I'd also want to understand how they were sealing off the area. I don't really understand that because I just don't want there to be confusion about if the trails are open and if they're not.
I think the Velco had
Yeah.
like signs, like they have.
Yeah, like
lawn
big yellow
signs.
tape. Yeah, they
Yeah,
like
tape.
tape across
Okay.
the access points.
And I think people were pretty respectful of that. I think people saw those signs and they stayed off, so.
So is that something to think about for the detailed planning then?
I think so. It just sort of puts a stake in the ground to say, like, let's not assume that all 6 weeks everything's closed, but to keep that as a discussion point, as you say, as we get closer with details with the contractor.
And the nice thing is the Velco Road will be open, so all the trails as you go in, you know, you can go up to the right and go up out that way, so it won't be shut off right from the woods trace right from the beginning, so. And you know, it might be an opportunity for people to explore the rest of Catamount. I mean, maybe some people are just so like adamant going out those same trails, and this might have, you know, get them to go to the other side. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a fair point. We could even like have, I assume John's listening, maybe he's stuck on mute. Like, we could even have some like events to like
Yeah.
lead
get-
people onto the other trails, you know,
Right.
hike on the parts that might be a nice community outreach.
Rediscover Catamount. Yeah.
Yeah, and those of you, as I become more familiar with the various plans that we have governing this property, it does actually say in the forest management plan that we'll explore keeping the area open during the project. So we can have a look at that.
My apologies. I was in a noisy environment. I am able to speak now. But you guys did a great job discussing, and I'm not going to interrupt now. Go.
So the second thing, well, now that you can speak, do you want to talk about your second thing, John?
Sorry?
Do you want to talk about your second thing? So the Outdoor Family Centre would like to pursue the idea that Ethan presented to potentially include trail improvements as part of the project.
Well, I liked Ethan's idea because, you know, I mean, it just seems like another way to improve the goals of the whole project, and recognize the recreational use too, and involved in it. So, you know, I don't know how that necessarily gets funded, but it's an obvious time in many ways to do that work too. You know, as they leave, things are disturbed, and you're better off improving it at that point rather than letting them try to fix it and then going back in to fix it again. So being co-located is efficient in many ways. You know, I think it's a good idea to pursue.
I wonder, I don't know how this works at all. You know, if this particular contractor, you know, waits till the very end to like go through and take care of all the trails, or do they do it as they go along? So my thought was, what I explained earlier is where if they went to the back of the property and started working, you know, harvesting the lumber, you know, the timber and from the back and worked forward.
Yeah.
And then as they go, they could start, you know, bringing the trails back to the pre-existing conditions before the logging. And then that would open it up for you guys to go in and do your thing. You know, you wouldn't be having to wait, you know, the whole 6 weeks till they were totally done. So you said you were going to have machinery there at Catamount during the summer?
That is our hope, and agreeing with this point. But yes, I mean, we have you know, projects with the town on Three Rivers that we need to also be planning, and our balsams work to get out of the wet areas there too, which it has been approved. I need to, you know, pursue where our permit status is there, but we're also currently applying for an Act 250 permit for the RTP project that we have potentially on the south side this summer. So there's we have a lot of plans. None of them are, at a fruition level, other than they're all going to happen. I mean, so we're trying to keep up with it on the permit and funding side. So
maybe that would be a good, to know where those trails were and to ask Longview and Ethan to say, okay, how about starting here? So get that section done and then allow Catamount to come in and bring the equipment in and start, after they get it back to, the way it was when they started. And then you guys could come in and start working on the trails then. I don't know how that would work. If Ethan was here, he probably could, chime in.
No, I think they have to, do, a majority of the work to bring it back to where it was, but it's already like in its most disrupted state at that point.
Right.
When they're walking out. So that's and so that is the perfect time to go in for us. So yeah, so I think if we could time it that way, I think it just makes sense for the whole project. So
yeah, I don't think they really care one way or the other which side they start on, but that would be something for Ethan to kind of work out with them. So.
Yeah, and I think if we look at it likely in phases where they're going to be using one of the ways out, for a section, that the other sections don't need to be closed. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if they start the furthest way out and the most west, and then they work, closer in and move and skip east, we close different sections as they work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's, I wish Ethan was here. He could, I don't know the workings of a logging operation, so I'm not sure, but yeah.
I mean, the Jim did describe the way that they had done it in the past to me, and said that they had always required the loggers to cross all the trails at a 90-degree unless they were using them as a road, and then those roads would obviously be closed during use. But if they weren't beat up enough to not really want people on them, that they would be opened after they were done for the day, or during times of inactivity. So there was some flexibility with the road use, because those are higher impact in many ways. And then the requirement to not use the corridors of the narrower trails as sort of the ways to get the logs to the wider roads.
So Simon said this isn't the end of the conversation for sure.
No.
So we'll be getting Ethan back and possibly meeting out there, and then really looking at this map. Simon printed out the map, and we can really just look at the map and say, okay, what are the possibilities of keeping some of these trails open, and not closing the entire spot down. So, but yeah, we have to work with Ethan and the contractor, I guess. Longview. No, those are all good things to look into ahead of time. That's why I think Ethan started so early, a whole year in advance.
So in terms of, including improvements in the project, how would that look? Would you want a budget of where we were planning to do improvements on those trails, and then present that and see what the town might support as part of this?
I think that'll be one piece of it. Like, we have to figure out like what it was you were proposing to do, and then we'd have to figure out where we were getting the money from.
Okay.
In reality,
I'm sorry. Is there room in this budget, or is it basically? I mean,
so there's no room in this budget, in our operating budget, and it's not in the capital budget. Okay. So realistically, the only source would be the stewardship fund, which is reasonable at the moment and will get replenished from the timber revenues. But spending money from the stewardship fund is basically a similar process. It's the Catamount committee has to discuss it, and then the select board has to approve it. So they will, no, not jumping ahead, but the select board approved the request for invasive treatment that we made a while ago. So I think they'll go with whatever you guys suggest.
Okay.
There's also, and who knows where this is gonna go, ARPA funds in the town. Apparently they're gonna put it out, Eric Wells, the manager, is going to put it out to the community. And there's $1.8 million. I mean, that was, they, at one of the select board meetings after they approved the first bunch. So that's a possibility. And grants, and I'm sure you've already got 2 in the works right now, but all sorts of grants for, I'm sure, trail building and improvements and stuff, so.
Yes, we're continuing to try to add to our asks on that. I did, want to, just say that the improvements we're doing are also meant to reduce the impacts of the trails and reduce the maintenance of them too, and improve so that it isn't necessarily just to so that those are the core values of why we're doing that work.
Yeah, I would imagine put together a proposal on and then bring it to the committee, and we can look at that and see where we can go with that to go either through the stewardship fund or yeah. So yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, while we're in there, this is the best time to do it.
Yep.
Great. Okay. So any more discussion on the forestry management project? It sounds like, Simon, you'll send the memo to the select board or Eric, and they'll go through with that. And Ethan's will be working on the fine tuning the contract. So I guess if we're done, we're right on schedule right now. So
I think Reed mentioned he's got to go at 6:30. So do you want to just do his item?
Yes, so that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yes, Reed. Oh, you're muted. Yeah.
You're supposed to just read my lips. So, Simon, can you bring up that photo? So what Terry had asked me to consider doing more informational birding signs, similar to, well, we started with Ethan's in the forest, and then we did the wood duck signs. And so I took the same template and just mocked up this one. And so this is just a first cut. It's the fonts are off, the wording isn't correct, and there's lots of things that need to be fixed on it. But it's easy to build these out because we've got a template now. And she also went for one or more for the nesting projects. So I threw this one together a week or so ago. And, last year, these cost all in with the signs, the poles, somewhere around $100 a piece. I think that's what it was, wasn't it, Simon?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have to go through the funding for that. And last year we did get some money from Green Mountain Audubon. Terry, I don't know if you have contacts to ask them for funding. And and so because if you think you're going to put one out in the field or one or more in the fields, and then I put one on the building at the family center, and if we continue along that line and we post them there, you could easily, between a nesting project and the bobolink, create another maybe six signs total. Sure. So you're looking at $600.
Yeah, I'm sure I can write a request to Audubon. They seem to have a pretty good sizable chunk of money that they would like to spend on projects. So, but we still have in our budget for educational things, I think we still have maybe 500.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, so once we get this.
Yeah.
And that's pretty, thank you so much for doing that. That's, you're
Well,
pretty an expert at it now, so that.
yeah,
looks
it doesn't, yeah. Terry provided me with a picture of the two guys in the center, and I was able to edit it and
Yeah, yes,
crop
it
it
was-
and lighten it up, and
Lightened it up a lot, yeah.
the
now you
other
can
two,
see it.
yeah, the other two, the bird ones are just from Cornell. And certainly if people have photographs themselves that we could use, from birders who are out there, both for the nesting birds and the bobolinks, we can use those if they're clear enough.
Yeah, I can, but those are actually pretty good ones, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure how much time people spend on photographing them out there.
Yeah.
But- And if
That's-
anybody's not familiar with, there's Carl Runge is on the right and Bruce McPherson's on the left, and these two have been pretty active at Catamount for a long time, probably 30 years or something. They've been birding over there, so they have a long history.
I'll reverse the names so that people don't
Yeah.
think one is the other.
Yeah.
Or I'll flip the picture. So
Right.
then Camel's Hump will be facing the wrong way. So,
Yeah, oops, yeah, that's true. Somebody might notice.
Yeah, and hopefully they don't think they're the bobolinks.
Yes.
It's bobolinks at Catamount, and it's got these two men.
Right.
Anyway,
wanna
we can do
say-
it. We can do anything with the layout, the wording.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went out to the Cornell site, and that's where the wording came from.
Okay, so maybe what I can do is write up a letter and to Green Mountain Audubon Society and see if they would be interested in funding the signage and see where that goes. And, if any might have some money in the operating budget to make up the difference. But yeah, if I ask for like $600, you think that would be?
Well, assuming the prices are about the same as last season, that should cover 6 signs.
Great.
So,
Okay. And I was thinking maybe another idea for signage over there would be, so there's the bobolinks, but there's also Savannah sparrows and meadowlarks, which are actually almost, I think they're on the endangered list right now. And a couple of other grassland birds. So we could do a sign for that.
Yeah.
Some other ideas, I was just thinking, once Reed did this sign, there's a vernal pool over off of, I think it's Sandman's trail over there. And then I was thinking about doing a project with apple trees, doing some pruning on apple trees. So maybe doing an educational sign on that.
So Simon, she now is up to 12 signs.
Yeah, that's right. It might be. But for now, we'll just stick with the bobolinks.
Well, I can certainly do no. I mean, if you're talking about 6, we wouldn't do 6 signs for bobolinks. We can certainly do nesting and other field birds easily.
Oh, right, and
Yeah,
the bluebirds, the
yes,
bluebird boxes.
bluebirds, yeah, swallows.
Yeah,
birds.
they're
Okay.
great. All right. Anybody
So
else?
in between other things, I can keep mocking these up during the winter.
Okay.
Just out of interest, thought that occurred to me, are there signs like on the property about Jim and Lucy?
No, there's-
But just like, is there a sign saying this was the first trail that Jim built?
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's
One of-
that's-
One of the trails called Farm Road, like Jim has some good stories about these trails. So first of all, we tried to name some of the trails after Jim and Lucy. He wouldn't have it. So good luck getting a sign about Jim and Lucy. But he does love propagating the history. Farm Road was like the official, I don't know, it was like It's one of the trails. It's on the Goose Hill side, and it has some history to it. I probably wrote it down somewhere from Jim. Yeah, but I bet, like this is the historic road that Governor Chittenden, da 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 da, whatever, right? That's a really good idea.
And if Jim doesn't want it to be about him, it can be about like
Yeah.
what was established. This was the first trail, or
Yeah. And I think Jim
just-
probably would be a wealth of knowledge for us to harvest those kind of nuggets to like post. And I mentioned Farm Road because he's told me the story on that one.
That'd be fun to kind of sit down and interview him and record it to get some of the history. That would be pretty big chapters.
Harry, I'll run the camera work if you want to sit down and interview him. Questions. I got a lot. But we don't have a sign like that. But there are the two big ash trees up on Night are named after them. I don't whether it says or
Oh, that's right, they are. I forgot.
Big
that.
Jim and lovely Lucy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
So there is mention on the rental barn that you guys have, that big signage does mention, I'm sure it does mention them, but.
I just thought it'd be cool because you walk through and you find these signs like on the forest management or for the duck boxes.
Mhm.
It would just be cool if, this is a historic trail, right?
Right, because not everybody
Yeah.
that goes there knows
Yeah.
the history, yeah. All right, there's another, another sign to
we
put on
may
your list.
we may need to make a signage list that because we're trying to do a lot of changes to our signage too. It might make sense to do this together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
know
mean,
what?
the more signs you order, you can probably get a better price.
And also the more co-located and concise we can make our signage, and not organic, I would like to say, as some of the trails have been built, where it was things maybe could have been better organized, is what I was saying. So I think together we could co-locate a lot of the information and reduce the amount of signs spread throughout the forest. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It makes sense, yeah. I think, the ones that Ethan has out for the forestry project, I don't think they're intended to stay forever. I think
No.
they're for the duration of the project, and we can move them around too, so.
Right. I mean, but the other ones I think we're talking about, I mean, stories about the trails and stories about the habitats and the birds and other animals. I think those are, longer term, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah, down the road, yeah. Yeah, so.
Well, I mean, longer term in terms of like they're meant to live in wherever we put them for a longer period.
Right, yeah,
Yes, yes.
as long as the bobolinks stay and the nest boxes.
Semi-permanent, because that's all we got.
Yeah. All right, I need to drop off. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank
I'll
you,
See
Reed.
you all later. Bye now.
Bye-bye. Okay, this is a good segue to John. You can, do you have any updates from Catamount Outdoor Family Center?
It's been a little bit of an up and down winter. I don't know if anybody noticed.
Winter?
Winter, yeah, right. But we have had programs and with the Catamount Trail and with Special Olympics every weekend. UVM has been coming out too, and lots of schools. So it's been busy, even with as our groomer said, we've been grooming the same snow for 3 weeks. It's amazing. So we made it work. And we had the Richard Tom Foundation hosted. We co-hosted the third annual Fat Bike Rally with them, and that was a great event that grew over last year. I haven't heard the numbers yet, but everybody was super happy with that one. Let's see. We are in the summer camp registration season, and that started right at the beginning of February, and again our next wave comes Saturday. It's pretty wild to see that come. If as a parent, I know how intense it can be for us to get that link and have to call right away, otherwise the camp is gone. And now I'm at the other end of that line, and it's pretty intense too on that side too. But everything is going really well with our staff, and I think that's a pretty good update of what's going on right now. Does anybody have any questions?
No, it is, must be hard. I mean, the snow, like you say, it's 3 weeks old, but you guys are doing a good job. You're out there grooming and see people show up.
It's I mean, every day it's busy and it's great to see, and great to see all the organizations come out too.
Yes, yeah. Great. Anybody else have anything else? Okay, so I guess our next meeting will be, oh, pardon?
Just Jeff. Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, yes. So I don't know if folks know that Jeff Fairs he's not here tonight. He will not be running for re-election for a select board. So he will probably, we won't see him again here. But he was a great advocate, for Catamount Community Forest and the outdoor center, and I'm sure he will continue. He lives right down the road, so. But he's going to pass the baton on to someone else. He's been select board member for a long time. He's been there, so. So sad to lose him as our select board, Leon's liaison, but I'm sure they'll choose somebody, they'll have somebody else from the select board that will be coming on, so. Yeah, anyway, so next meeting would be March 9th?
Yeah, March 9th. I think, Terry, you mentioned you weren't going to be here for it.
Right, so I will not be here. So that would be Danielle. Would you be willing to run the show as vice chair?
So I should probably also check that if Hans and Reed can't make it.
I should check my calendar too.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
so, I mean, we could skip it, if there will not be a quorum, we can just.
Yeah. I'll send out a poll to make sure to see who's available and who's not.
Good. Okay.
If we don't have quorum, we'll just move on to April.
Okay, so, but I will be here for April, and we can resume if we, because most of it will be, we're waiting to hear back from Ethan anyway, right? So.
Without Jeff, who is a quorum would be Danielle, Hans, and Terry?
And Reed, yeah.
And Reed, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so we need to
That would
have,
Three.
we need three.
Reed to be a quorum, yeah.
Yeah. I'm good for that day, but Reed's not here, so you send a poll, I'll reply.
true.
I'm good for
Yeah.
that.
So that would be the right, the deciding factor. So Simon you'll
Yeah.
take care of that. Great. Okay, well, we're a little early, a couple of minutes, actually not too early, but is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion. With Reed gone, no, somebody's got to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there a
I
second?
second
Oh,
it.
that's true. Second it, great. All
All
right,
right.
so it's 6:37 and we'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Jerry, thanks for
Thank you.
leading us through. Thanks.
Thanks.
See you
Bye-bye.
guys.